You know, the first thing we're going to do, we're going to get on my boat, and my boat's called Tangerine, and she's really, really safe. Look, come into the boat. Ooh, look at the boat. I will row you. Do you want to sit on one side, Freddie? Yeah, look.
Look, I found a torch.
Here, come into my boat. You can shine the torch.
A shark.
Shark. Hurry, look, grab my torch. How do you get into the boat? Do you want to come into the boat with me? It's nice and soft and comfortable. So we start our journey. Okay, and we're going to see all sorts of things.
See a shark.
I can see a shark. Okay, well, as long as he's a long way away, we're okay.
Imagining Autism is a creative, play-based practice. It involves working with autistic children in multisensory environments, working with interactive media. It's interest-led, quite important to say that it's interest-led, so we're always following children's cues. It involves improvisation.
What we're trying to do is to try and get teachers and parents and so on to start where the child is, to try and put themselves in the child's position. That was a lesson that we had to learn, I think, quite early on, and it's vital, I think, to the Imagining Autism ethos, because that child perceives the world very differently to how we perceive it.
And also, there are assumptions made about how autistic children experience the world. So if you're following the child's cues, the children will have particular sensory interests, things that they're drawn to. And that becomes very, very important because autistic children operate in a neurotypical world with neurotypical expectations, and that creates a lot of the challenges that they experience. The aims and objectives were very much framed around the original research questions. If you took key components of drama, imagination, communication, social interaction, in those days, the diagnostic criteria for autism were around those three areas. And one thing that is really interesting to know about autism diagnosis is that it's not fixed, it does change, and it has changed very dramatically. So when autism was first diagnosed, it was actually associated with an excess in imagination. And roll forward, and by the time you get to 2010-11, when our project started, it was very much associated with a deficit. And that's certainly the impression that I got as a parent of an autistic child. One of our discoveries, which we're delighted about and have reported on at length, is the fact that actually autistic children have very rich imaginations.
The aims and objectives of Imagining Autism have changed since the original project. Imagining Autism is more to do with a recognition of the arts, if you like, participatory arts particularly, as a wonderful, rich resource, a wonderful, rich method in education, possibly in health.
I'm autistic, and I guess my experience of the project, there was several things that were kind of misconceptions. So some people would say that the pod was too overwhelming for autistic kids, that it needed to be low arousal, but actually that's not the case. Autistic people are sensory seeking as well as sensory avoidance, and especially if children are enjoying themselves and they are in control, which is what we allow, they would experience that and love it. Nikki and Melissa felt my input was really important as an autistic person, and to have an autistic person that was part of the project to advise them, especially on things like autistic experience and what was important in relation to autistic culture, and making sure that they got the language right.
What's the pod? The pod is like a tented structure, and obviously within that space we put lights and sound. Children would gather outside, and then obviously they'd meet some of the characters, wouldn't they? It would get them used to the idea of going in, and the teachers may well have prepared things as well beforehand so they knew what to expect. They would go into the pod and there would be about a 40-minute session. During that time there would be a narrative which the specially trained performers, practitioners had in mind, but it was a very flexible narrative. We found that we could translate that into training, yes, for teachers, in education settings, and for parents in community settings.
Ultimately, what we do within the pods is it's a performance that is co-produced with the young people. So we follow their lead, and that's really incredibly important. I also support autistic university students, and one of them was talking about what it's like for them, and they said that they didn't feel like they played as a child. And I was like, well, I think you did play. Play can be all sorts of different things. And sensory play, just looking at sand fall through your hands, is play. And I think what happens within the pods is that we follow the young people's leads, and if they want to sit there and pop bubble wrap the whole time, that's okay. If they want to play with the sand and bury the parrot in the sand, that's okay. That's incredibly important to allow young people to, enjoy the sensory world. And that's a huge part of being autistic, actually, that nobody talks about. We talk about autistic joy, and that's what you're seeing in the pods a lot of time.
It becomes a space where it's somewhere special. So sometimes they're not allowed in their pod if it's in their classroom for a whole week. So it becomes this like mysterious thing, and sometimes items appear in it to spark conversations. So by having that there, it becomes a normal lesson suddenly becomes a little bit more exciting, a little bit more engaging. You've got them right there, you've got them where you need to teach them. As a teacher, your job is to engage the children in their learning and get them excited about it and learn about the passion, because they'll learn much easier and they'll start to develop their own passions. So if you've got that element right there, it becomes a lot easier, and it's a godsend as a teacher really to have that resource at your fingertips. We've also had situations where the students use puppets and we engage with them with puppets, but even more powerful than that, we've given the puppets to the students and they've been able to talk to each other using the puppets. And if it was just themselves, they'd have social challenges and they'd maybe have a bit of a falling out. They've been able to interact and talk to their peers at that level with the puppets as, an extension of themselves.
Have you got the torches, boys? See if you can see anything in that water.
It's great to have the full immersive experience in the pod. You get much more focus by having that experience, but there's still a willingness to suspend disbelief through these classroom structures as well. And there's something about time in Imagining Autism, I call it a nowhere, which is like a now and a here. It's about being in the moment, being in this space of presence, really. And the minute that you're not in the moment, the minute that you lose that, you've lost the magic. You're very, very absorbed in that fictional immersive space, and it's the props in the pod that create that.
My favourite part was the slither.
The treasure. You like the treasure. Why did you like the treasure?
Was a teapot inside?
The teapot was inside. Who
Yes,
took
lots
the teapot?
of gold.
And lots of gold?
Yes.
Oh, you like a bit of gold, don't you, Benny?
Yes.
But who stole the teapot?
Me? The parrot.
Was he
The
naughty?
red parrot.
The naughty red parrot?
Yes.
But did Captain MJ get the teapot back?
Yes. Of course.
Oh, good.
Now that we've been able to upskill our teachers around this project, the next stage is to take these basic principles and teach the parents how they can use this at home. And that way, if we've got consistency across the school and we've got it across home, then that transition can become a lot easier for our students, which, to be honest, they find really, really difficult.
It's given us a chance as adults to learn that we need to step back and we need to observe and we need to wait and let children take the lead sometimes. We need to let these children they express themselves in very different ways sometimes. We have to learn to pick up on those emotional, social cues, their language cues, and actually learn how to explore those and expand them as well.
Ultimately, right now, a lot of young people, especially autistic people, neurodivergent people, feel quite unsafe in schools. And these pods are quite welcoming, they're a fun experience, and it brings the joy back to education, and it makes young people feel safer and feel that they are enjoying school. And I think especially for neurodivergent autistic people, young people, that's really important, to give them a space to kind of play and be totally immersed in something and really enjoy it. And by enjoying something, a lot of times young people will more likely learn better and feel safer in the school.
When I saw that sign outside the classroom, it said the Imagining Autism Pod, I just felt this huge sense of achievement. We've done it, it's become permanent, it's alive in a school and it has a life of its own. It is an autistic-led project now, I think that's fair to say. We have had autistic involvement and advocacy at every level of the project. So we've got autistic practitioners, we've got autistic researchers, we've had autistic film artists work with us. It's something that has really moved beyond an academic project. It's about working with, working for and being led by to transform understanding of autism.
Yeah, why do you know that, Benny? You're right. Why do you know that? How do you know that?